Hello and good morning, everybody. It is me, Julian, and today I would like to talk about the importance of doing nothing, or why you should do nothing so that you might begin doing something. And this isn't just a self-help argument about the value of self-reflection and taking a break so that you might recharge your batteries. Instead, I'd like to offer you a step-by-step explanation of a really interesting argument that Slavoj Žižek makes about the relationship between the category of sloth, one of the 7 deadly sins, and the bourgeois capitalist accusation of laziness, and how you can free yourself from it. In fact, let's take a look at page 82 of Slavoj Žižek's book, Absolute Recoil, in which he writes the following words. Sloth is not simple anti-capitalist laziness, but a desperate sickness unto death, the attitude of knowing one's eternal duty, but avoiding it. Here Žižek is talking about the pre-modern subject, who is told by the church that it is his ethical duty to pursue the common good. Hence, any refusal to participate in social ethical life is by definition characterized as evil. Hence, to not participate in accordance with the social good is to make yourself a pariah and the enemy of the church. It is sinful to be considered sloth. And Žižek says that this motif, this ideology, is transposed into capitalist society, except now it is no longer that you refuse a participation as to the ethical good. Instead, it is that you refuse participation in exploitation and productivity. In other words, the worker who refuses to be exploited is considered lazy. He is not working hard enough. And whereas the pre-modern subject was accused of being evil because he was not contributing to the common good, the capitalist subject is accused of being evil because he does not contribute to the reproduction of capital and capitalism. The lazy worker is therefore the sinful worker, reified or recast in capitalist form. Žižek adds to this a third category, what he calls the late-stage capitalist subject, who is depressed. Why? He is depressed because he is free, but only nominally so. Namely, if the original accusation was that you were evil if you were succumbing to sloth, and then you were evil if you were lazy, now the accusation is that you are evil if you are not having fun, if you are not enjoying yourself. The contemporary late-stage capitalist mantra is, are we having fun yet? With all the dark undercurrents that statement implies. And Žižek's argument, therefore, is that the sinful attitude today is no longer being lazy or sloth. It is not appearing to have fun. It is not presenting properly as a happy subject, enjoying your life to the fullest. As Kim Kardashian once famously said, what is life for if not to have fun? Hence, the contemporary subject realizes that it is now his ethical duty to pretend like he is not despairing, so as to appear happy for others, and thereby being granted the acknowledgement of his existence. And this is what Žižek calls true despair, tristitia mortifera, to quote Kierkegaard, a sickness unto death. The sickness unto death of contemporary life is that we are told to present as happy when in fact we are despairing. Now, how do we escape this? Žižek says that the first thing you have to do to escape this tristitia mortifera is to take a step back, essentially to do nothing. To do nothing is always a threat, because if you do nothing, it means that you have already refused to accept what exists as given. For a moment, you are no longer part of the game. You are no longer part of the machine. It means that when you take a step back and you do nothing, you can start questioning why you were doing it in the first place. And that is always a threat to the powers that be. Hence, the ultimate sin in contemporary life is to either be unproductive or to not be enjoying your leisure time, posting on Facebook or Instagram how hard you are working or how much fun you are having. Instead, to recuse yourself, to say, I would prefer not to simply not do anything is suddenly ethically suspicious. What is he doing if he is doing nothing? And Žižek therefore argues that to do nothing is actually a powerful act of resistance because it allows you to begin thinking about why you were doing it in the first place and what you would rather be doing. However, it is important that we don't take this as a self-help mantra. The point is not to do nothing so that you might then be more productive. In fact, Žižek makes the argument that one of the dangers of late-stage capitalism is that the despair that comes from being nominally free leads us into temptation when it comes to accepting parental figures of authorities who become masters who tell us how to live. The Jordan Petersons of the world give us a sense of purpose and meaning because we can simply follow their truisms. We can simply follow the guidance of common sense. And so Žižek's argument is not that you should take a step back so that you might find meaning and purpose, clean up your room and become a more productive subject. Instead, his argument is that by means of doing nothing, you can start doing things that other people might consider to be unproductive. Reading a book, going for a walk, listening to classical music, reading poetry, philosophizing, writing polemical tracts or manifestos. In other words, to do the very thing that is not yet valued within the current ideology. In fact, to risk going all the way and be considered a pariah, be considered scum and unproductive, sloth, lazy, or unhappy, to embrace the mantle of this rejection, and therein to do something worth doing. In fact, Žižek's basic argument is that I would prefer not to, the Bartlebian maxim, is not simply a negation. It is not saying I don't want to do it. Instead, it is the affirmation of a negation. I would prefer not to means the assertion of the subject as to his own agency so that he might begin thinking about not only what he wants to do, but why what he thought he wanted to do was always already overdetermined by the incentive structures of the powers that be. In other words, Žižek's basic advice, to risk using a self-help framing for a moment, is that the power of doing nothing is that it is not the absence of an act. Instead, it is an act which is precisely not conforming to the incentive structures of the contemporary ideology. Hence, if for Žižek, to be a philosopher is to refuse what exists as given, to question the fundamental fabric of your social, ethical surroundings, to question the power structures on a structural level, this, therefore, begins by refusing to participate, to not do what other people do, to refuse to think what other people think, and not to congratulate yourself on your nonconformism, but instead to use it as a reorientation towards others, to teach, to participate in your community, to do something of value for others and thereby to give to yourself. This is what it means to say, I would prefer not to. I would prefer not to do what you believe to be important so that I might do that which makes life worth living. Hence, the alienated subject is precisely the subject who is told to give in to his every desire. We live individualistic lives of excess. And Žižek says that this excess makes us unhappy. It makes us unfulfilled. We can have everything we want, and yet there remains a void at the heart of our very being. And the danger is that this void makes us susceptible to tyrannical figures who tell us how to live so that we might find purpose. Instead, we must refuse anyone who gives us a simple way how to live. We must excuse ourselves from contemporary life so as to rethink our life. Read, write, discuss, teach, fight for what you believe in. And that is what will give you some form of contentment. That is Žižek's basic argument. If you'd like to learn more about this, please do consider joining my Patreon, where you can find my complete guide to Žižek ebook series, which is a lot more theoretically dense. Or, of course, you can read Žižek's book Absolute Recoil, which is a reconsideration of the relationship between Hegel and Marx. Absoluter Gegenstoß is the German word that this derives from. Thank you so much, and I will see you for the Monday lecture.